All right, hopefully you can see that. Looks like you can, along with all my mess in the shop. Now I've already loosened everything up on this spindle right here. So how I'm going to do this is a 30mm nut. I already loosened this up while the spindle was still in the deck. So you're going to take that off. Now you will need an impact to get this nut off right here. I just don't think you can do it without an impact. Now this is a very specialized nut because it's the flange base, it's heavy, and it's got this concave part on the inside that goes over the shoulder of the little splines right here. Then there's a washer. This washer, it does have a little groove in it that matches up. You see that one little groove, so it's all spline, and then there's that one larger groove right there. That matches up to the grooves on the shaft. This is the pulley. The pulley just sits on there like that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put all of this back together like so. Then there's this guard. This guard just sits down over this washer right here, and there's the seal. And if you want to see the seal, and what's really important, when you take stuff like this apart, make sure you know where the seals are at, because sometimes they're recessed and sometimes they are not. In this particular case, the seal is flush with the top of the mandrel. You can see that. So all that's the seal right there, and it is flush with the top of the mandrel, or at least what I call the mandrel, which is this housing here. Now, what you do next is you should be able to just push your thumbs, and you'll drop the shaft out. Now typically what I do with the shaft is I'll actually go ahead and clean it up a little bit. And I'll do some of this off camera so you're not watching me, because I generally spend probably 10 or so minutes cleaning stuff from this kind of these types of deals. That way I know I'm putting back together something that is nice and clean. Now you want to inspect the shaft for any wear. You see definitely some witness marks, things like that. But there's no appreciable wear, which is good. I don't have to replace the shaft and wait another week to pick up a part order. Now what I go ahead and do is, so you know where you're at in the rebuild process. So you've got the top here, and you have to remember that this washer is splines up. So if you go ahead and take this washer out, it's actually like a, I don't know, seal, or I don't know what you call it. But you notice it has two grooves on the bottom. So that's how that works. So I'm just going to put that back in there for right now. And then when we flip it over, we see that this seal in the housing is recessed. Okay. We also see that there's another washer in here. And what's really important is this washer, there's a little chamfered edge right here, and that chamfered edge is pointing out. So we need to remember that. Now, one of the things that we also need to notice is we need to notice that seal is right on top of the bearing. So if you look down in there, the seal is right on top of the bearing, so you can push that seal. When we put the new seal in there, you can push it down as far as possible. So now, as I drop parts everywhere, now that I have a good orientation to my washers, I'm going to go ahead and take my washers out. I'm going to wipe them off. And like I said, I'll come back and clean some of these off camera with cleaner towels and whatnot. To kind of give you an idea of why I am doing this, some of this grease that I'm taking out of here looks like it's grease from the factory. So it tells me that this mower deck was not well taken care of. So now what we're going to do is we have to remove the two seals. Now, I'm a little old-fashioned when it comes to that. And literally all I'm going to do to remove the seals, take a screwdriver, you get them off balance a little bit, and you should just be able to pry them up. Because you can't reuse these seals at all. Well, they're not breaking like they normally do. Go figure, do it on, there we go. I say do it on video and I can't get it to do what it normally does. Once you get it bent a little bit, it'll pop right out like it's doing right now. And you should be able to do most of this by hand. Woo! There you go. Popped out. So, you see there's different types of grease in there, whatnot. Throw that away. Now that I've scared myself. Thought it was coming to slap me in the face. Luckily it didn't. A little bit of entertainment for your evening. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get a lot of this grease out of here. Because, I mean, it's got to come out anyway when I clean it up. And then what you can do is just remember this part and how it doesn't want to spin. Okay. So, need more paper towels. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn around. We're going to do this seal. Now this seal, from what I remember, get all the oil out of the way. Nope. Need to break it too. There we go. And that one just comes right out. So there's that. Now what's really important is this seal is directional, and I'll show you that. You can see the little lip in there. That will become important when we go to put it back together. Alright, so now remove our grease out of here. Obviously not all of it. And now we're left with just our bearings. Now what's nice is these bearings, you kind of have to use a punch to punch them out. There's a tube in there. That tube is what's going to center the shaft. Now, once again, I'm using a brass punch. By using a brass punch, I do not run the risk of damaging the steel housing. So now what I'm going to do, we're going to beat the bearing out. Now once the bearing gets so far down, which it's there, it's going to hit the surface of my workbench. Now I could go find a couple little blocks and prop it all up, which is fine. But what I did the other day, when I first taught myself how to do this, is I just took and put it up on its side and literally just kind of pushed it out this way. I mean, you can see it's coming out nice and easy. These are not, to my experience, these are, it's a good way to whack yourself on the hand if you want to. You know, that might provide some, hey, that might get me views. Watch me scream on camera. Although it probably wouldn't be able to be monetized because I have too many four-letter words in it. Now normally I would walk over to my vise to put this in there, but that would require setting up the camera again. So, in fact, I'm going to walk over to the vise. You're just going to have to listen to me do that. Fixed it. Alright, so that was easy. There's my bearing. There's my housing. And here's the bushing that goes in the housing. and grab a towel here. Wipe all the grease off. A lot of this grease is the grease that I put in there. What that tells me is there was not a lot of grease in there at all. So now, I'm actually going to walk back over to the vise again and punch the other bearing out. And then we'll start getting everything cleaned up. Alright, so there's my other bearing. So now I have to clean all that up. Hopefully you don't mind this video being in somewhat real time. I think it kind of shows you how long it's going to take you to do it. Now everybody's situation is going to be different. You're going to have different types of tools, different locations, shops. You know, if I didn't have an air impact gun, I'd still be fighting trying to get the stupid things off the deck, or still try to get the nuts off. And just realize that you're going to go through a lot of shop towels. Shop towels are expensive. I buy mine at Sam's Club. I suppose you could probably buy them at Costco too. We just happen to have a Sam's Club membership. And so about once every 6 months or so, we'll go to the big city and go to Sam's Club. And generally I'll get 1 or 2 cases of shop towels. So you want to make sure it's nice and clean, like that. And what I'm going to go ahead and do, I'm going to go ahead and make sure there's no metal filings in there or anything. And I'm actually going to clean it out with brake clean. I just want to make sure there's no metal filings in there or anything like that. Alright, maybe I will just clean everything up on camera. Seems to be going pretty good so far. I don't know if it'll stay that way. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and clean out all these components. All of the bushings, the washers, things like that. Because they all need to be clean as well. Now, one thing you will see me do when I go put this back together is I actually do not put any grease in it when I assemble it. I put all of my grease in after I assemble it, other than what's on the seals. So that might be something that some people don't agree with. It's just how I do it. It seems to work just fine. Because, I mean, clearly everything's greased once you get 50 or so pumps of grease in the spindle. But I've had a couple people tell me that I don't grease things when I reassemble them. Everything seems to work just fine. It's not necessarily that I forget. I do grease everything. I go through enough grease at least. You know, you want to make sure all your spines are nice and clean. You can just see, I just take my time. I mean, clearly it's a mower deck spindle, so it's not going to be perfect. But at the same time, you also don't want to, you don't want to ruin brand new bearings with, you know, metal shavings or anything like that. All right. So there's the shaft. We'll clean up these last few parts here. How long am I working on my video? Oh, we're only at 17 minutes and 41 seconds. That's not terrible. All right. I think everything else is... Oh, no. Got this one part right here. All right. So now, to reassemble. Actually, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to clean up the work area here. Because, you know, the shop is so clean. All right. 2 bearings. M88251. Have been bested by a cardboard box. So these were $9.40, I think. Spins nice and free. No problems there. Koyo G205. That's the bearing number. Now, here's how I'm going to install these bearings. If I had a shop press, I would use the shop press, clearly. Make sure there's nothing on the inside edge. Doesn't appear to be. I'm just going to sit it in there. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use a rubber mallet. Now, what scares me is that's actually pretty loose in there. Now, what I've done is I've got 3/4 sockets here. And I'm just going to kind of rotate it around the outside of my... This is an 1 3/8", 3/4 drive socket. Note I'm using a rubber mallet. I'm not using anything. I'm not using a metal hammer or anything. So what I did is I ran it around the outside. You want to make sure it looks, yep, it's flush in there. So we're good to go there. Now we're going to do the other one. This is a pretty simple process. There's no press fits in this particular system, which is really nice. It won't be like my air compressor project that I started over a year ago that I haven't touched because I don't have a press. I keep looking for one. You'll probably hear in video here in a couple days, or maybe before this one. Well, I've actually gone to several auctions and gotten skunked recently. No metal. So we're going to take and may just have to turn the sound off for that. So this is a little bit larger one, so I'm on the outside of the bearing. Now we can go around. I just made a major mistake. I forgot to put that in. So that means I get to drive these bearings back out. And hopefully they're still good. I always love when I make mistakes on video. Let me go over to the... I'm going to go over to the vise and drive this thing out. Because I have to be very careful. Well, like I said, I love screwing up on video. Shows you everybody can do it. I think, yep, that bearing's toast. Oh well. Hey, that just means that I have to wait another week to get all the parts I need to rebuild the stupid deck. So, because I'll have to order a single bearing unless I have one here. I will go through my bearing stash and see. So, drop that in there like it's supposed to be. So you drop that in there like that. And now we can try this again. I can't believe I forgot that. Some days the bug, some days you're the bug, some days you're the windshield. Besides, I didn't like that bearing anyway. All right, now, I think that sounds pretty good. Certainly spins a lot better than it did, and it'll just sit there. That clicking you hear is the bushing. My knuckles resting on the bushing. Let me see if I can put it on here. I don't know if that'll... I mean, you see how well it works. That's just really disappointing that I did that I forgot that bushing in there. Oh well. Yeah, there's that bearing is. That bearing's just toast. All right, seals. So, we have two different types of seals. We have M127198 and we have M85699. All right, so you see how these two seals are different, right? This larger one is the top seal, and if you remember, that one mounts flush with the top. And remember the bottom seal is actually recessed a little bit. So how we're going to do this is I'm going to use a rubber mallet again. It's going to take me a little bit to get it started. Make sure there's no schmutz around the top. I don't think so. Nope. Okay. So then we're just going to kind of set it in here. Just like that. That's the easy part, right? I think so. So now we're going to turn it over. We got to install this seal in the back. Now, like I said, it is directional, okay? Now, if we look, where's my other spindle at? We're going to look at the other spindle here for just a second. All right, hopefully you can see in there. There's that lip right around the outside. And if you look, at our new seal, this is going to be up like that. That's based on that one. That's why it's always good when you're doing things that there's multiples of. Only rebuild one at a time. That way you always have a reference to go back to. Okay, make sure there's nothing around the top. Nope. Like I said, this one has to be recessed. I think a mouse just ran. Oh, there goes a mouse. The garage door's open. He must have just came in from the outside. Now I'm just going to use my socket. There we go. All right. Now, next thing we have to do is install our washers. Now what we're going to do is I'm actually going to cheat a little bit. And we're going to put a little bit of this grease on our seal right here. Put the rest inside. And remember, our chamfered edge points out. Because what you don't want to do is during assembly, you don't want to end up with this bending the seal. So if you go ahead and put it in now, you can go ahead and inspect what you've done. Oops. A little bit more grease on the outside here. Got a little too clean. There we go. Okay, so that one's in there. Now we're going to go ahead and turn it over. And I am actually going to install this top one. Do the same thing. Top one's typically a little easier than the bottom one. Now what we can do is we can install, now remember this is a key, this keyway right here has to go in the correct spot. That takes a little bit of doing sometimes. And it's just a little bit of a pain to get it centered. I'm going to try to do it here so you can see it on video. Just like that right there. Okay. Next, we're going to take the dust cover or whatever you want to call that, put it over the top, and then we can take our pulley. And our pulley is keyed as well, so we'll find the correct orientation for our pulley. Put our pulley down on there. And then we're going to put our washer, once again in the correct orientation, and then the nut. Just like that. I'm going to take the impact, and when I go put it on the deck, take the impact, tighten this down. We should be good to go. You see, I think it looks pretty good. Go ahead and put some grease on it. Everything else will be good to go. So that is how I rebuild the deck spindles. Or that's how I did rebuild the deck spindles. I was going to go ahead and do the other one, but now that I busted that bearing, that's my own stupid fault. Cost me 10 bucks. I'll have to order another one. But yeah, so there you go. Thanks for watching.